In this episode, we are going to talk about how cognitive interviews work and why they're helpful for workplace incidents. We're going to get into all kinds of tips and tricks to help you conduct better post-incident interviews, whether it be the individuals involved directly with the incident or even witnesses, bystanders, and others that might be able to help contribute to learning how that incident took place. Get ready to take some notes in this episode. Let's get into it. Before we get into today's topic, I have one question for you. Are you still painting your floors for 5S markings, things like that? Don't do that. Head over to mightylinetape.com/podcast, a great partner in safety. They've been with us from the beginning. They have some really good products that are going to get you out of a whole lot of time, material, and maintenance and upkeep. Their floor marking tape is second to none. It takes up easily, doesn't leave a sticky residue. They've got floor tape with beveled edges for forklift traffic, carts, things like that. So it really holds up well to that kind of traffic in your facility. They also can do custom floor signs. If you have a particular logo or a message, they can make that happen. Get a free sample and try it for yourself. Again, head over to mightylinetape.com/podcast. Tell them that we sent you. You will get a free sample to try out in your facility today. Again, mightylinetape.com/podcast. All right, workplace incidents, they're never something that we, our companies, the employees, and us as safety professionals, nothing we look forward to experiencing, right? But look, they happen. They still happen. And it's important for everyone involved to understand what and how it happened, right? That's going to require us to interview folks that are involved, witnesses, eyewitnesses, ear witnesses, or subject matter experts that just have something to contribute based on the direction our deep dive heads down, right, and takes us down this path. So it stands to reason that you're going to want to ask the right questions correctly to elicit the most accurate information possible. So look, a cognitive interview technique is one of the most effective ways to do this. Now, before we get into what a cognitive interview is, I want you all to know that this episode is in part made possible by our partners at Aero Safety. If your company is looking for hands-on, customized safety services, whether it's auditing, detailed inspections, training, it could be written program development, you name it, Aero Safety has the approach for you. No canned off-the-shelf cookie-cutter training and programs. These services are customized to fit your business needs. Contact Drew Hinton at Aero Safety and get a 25% off discount of your first quote just by mentioning this podcast. That's right. Let Drew know we sent you as you look for your last safety services provider. Head on over to aerosafetyus.com and see what they have to offer for you. Again, that's aerosafetyus.com. Thanks again, Drew, for all your support. And we're going to go ahead and dive into what is a cognitive interview technique. A cognitive interview technique, it's a method of questioning designed to encourage interviewees to provide as much detail as possible about the incident. It's called cognitive because it focuses on people's mental processes to remember events. It's based on this idea that memory is constructive, right? Our memories aren't perfect. They're certainly not perfect representations of what happened, but a reconstruction of what we think we experienced. There's going to be gaps. There's going to be things that we don't quite remember or recall. So it's important to help them recall this information. I'll give you a real quick example. Have you ever had an employee report what we would call a late injury? So it's toward the end of the shift and they're like, wow, you know what? My shoulder is really killing me. It was something earlier in the day. I think maybe it was earlier in the shift and I noticed it, but I didn't think it was a big deal. Okay, do you know what time? No, I don't. Well, is it before or after lunch? Do you remember who was standing around? Like, help me recreate, where you were. sights, sounds, like all that kind of stuff to kind of help us narrow down a window of time where this may have taken place. That's an example. It isn't about, well, if you can't tell me what time it is, then, maybe it didn't happen. You want to help them reconstruct, recreate, put themselves back into that situation so that they can pick out key details that would help them recall about what time that happened. There's a quick example, but it's a matter of shifting from interrogations to helping us understand how something could have taken place. So it's less about the person and more about the information that we have to unlock that they have. Now, there's several benefits to using a cognitive interview technique, especially for workplace incidents. One, you obtain detailed and accurate information. Cognitive interviews are designed to gather as much detailed and accurate information about the incident as possible. So this information can help you understand what happened, how it happened, and leading us to where we want to be, how to prevent it from happening again. Cognitive interviews can help establish a consistent timeline and identify discrepancies in the various accounts in cases with multiple witnesses to an incident. This is going to help us figure out what's important and what's not important, what may have contributed or what didn't. And that's key for us. See, we're just trying to piece this all together. So you need to take all the information as it comes in. It isn't, we don't correct people when they say things like, oh, Blaine said it didn't happen that way. It's just a matter of taking good notes, using active listening, and organizing all this to obtain a detailed and accurate picture about what may have happened. Another benefit, obviously, is prevention. I kind of just touched on it there at the end of that last benefit, and that's prevention. Investigating workplace incidents, we all know it's essential for preventing future incidents from occurring. So by using cognitive interviews to gather information about an incident, you can identify the underlying causes, contributing factors to the incident, and take corrective action to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. The other benefit that we have is continuous improvement. Workplace incidents, let's be honest, they can provide valuable insights into other areas where improvements can be made. For example, if you discover one of the failure points leading up to or contributing to an incident is we don't have a firm grasp on management of change. We went and changed an aspect of this assembly line or this equipment without going through a thorough review. Well, where else might we be doing this? So strengthening our management of change or our change management processes and how we oversee those and manage those, that's going to provide continuous improvement in other areas of the business. Another benefit, employee engagement. Cognitive interviews, this approach, using it as part of the incident investigation process, will also help to engage workers in the investigation process. They're going to help us learn, and they're going to help provide information and even make suggestions on what we could fix. By encouraging workers to share their experiences and their perspectives on the incident, we can demonstrate our commitment to workplace safety, build trust with the workers, and create a more robust culture with safety being a major part of that. And of course, last but not least is compliance. We all know in many industries, employers are required by law to investigate workplace incidents. So using cognitive interviews as part of your incident investigation process, one can meet legal requirements and comply with regulations and bring all those other added benefits to the table that we just talked about, all by switching our perspective and the reason why we're talking to these individuals. And that is to not, we have evidence that they've done something wrong and we're trying to get them to admit it. That's an interrogation. And shifting to help us understand how work happens, how work gets done, and how we might be able to change that. So that's a big deal right there alone. But thoroughly investigating workplace safety incidents and taking corrective actions can demonstrate that the company is taking the necessary steps to ensure the safety of its employees, which will help reduce the likelihood of legal action being taken. All right, so how do we conduct a cognitive interview? We know what it is. We talked about some of the benefits. Let's talk about how to conduct one. During a cognitive interview, the interviewer may use several techniques that encourage the interviewee to provide a detailed description of the incident. Now, when conducting a cognitive interview, following a structured approach is key. It's essential to this whole thing. So here are some techniques for conducting a successful cognitive interview. Number 1, establish rapport with the interviewee. Now, the person you're interviewing should feel comfortable and at ease before the interview begins. Establishing rapport can help put the interview at ease and encourage them, by the way, to provide more detailed information. Make the room comfortable. Remove distractions. Give them a comfortable chair. Don't place any objects between you and the individual. Don't sit on one end of the table and they're sitting on the other end. That's bad, okay? Make sure that you're sitting at a slight angle. Don't face off with the individual. Don't be afraid to let them see your notes either. If you're sitting at a table in a conference room or a small office, you shouldn't be hiding your notes. If possible, ask to go see where the work happened, if it's safe for them to do so, given the nature of their injury. But let's say you go out to an assembly line and you're facing a conveyor or a machine that was involved. You're facing your problem, right? You face that. That's your problem. And I used to tell my teams, never face-to-face, always shoulder-to-shoulder. That's a good approach, right? Make them feel comfortable. Establish rapport. Always open with how they're feeling. Show some compassion. Console. Make sure you do that. In every interaction you have with the injured worker during this process, that's the first thing you should open with. So all of those things can help establish rapport. Number 2, ask open-ended questions. I know we say this all the time, and it almost goes without saying, but I'm shocked at, even today, how often I have to say this. Open-ended questions encourage them to provide a detailed description, their version, their recollection of the incident. They should be asked in non-leading ways to avoid influencing them and influencing their memory and some key facts and details. Just let them go, right? Let them talk. And that gets us into number 3, free recall. This technique involves the interviewer asking the interviewee to provide a full account of the event without interruption. And it encourages the interviewee to recall as much detail as possible without being influenced by the interviewer. And let them self-edit. It's okay if they go, no, wait a minute. Actually, that happened after this other thing happened. Let them go. If they're on a roll and they're opening up and they're talking, let them talk, okay? Number 4, mental reinstatement. This technique involves asking the interviewee to recreate the context and environment of the event mentally. The interviewee is encouraged to recall sensory details like sounds, smells, colors to help them recall the event. And the example I gave you earlier, that's a perfect illustration of this mental reinstatement, right? It's like, well, do you remember had you eaten lunch yet? Were you hungry? Was it the mid-morning? Was it after this key process that launches every day during the shift or before? Take them back to that time, make them feel present in that time by recalling other, environmental influences, sights, sounds, who else was around, right? Who was working next to you at the time? Oh, well, that's a water spider and they only come around at 10 a.m. And okay, so it was around that time. That kind of stuff. That's really useful. So number 4, mental reinstatement. Number 5, change their perspective. In this technique, the interviewee is asked to recall the event from a different perspective, such as from the viewpoint of another person that may have been present during the event. This can help uncover new details and views on the event. Imagine if I were a coworker standing at that next workstation. What do you think I would have seen? What would that have looked like to them? Paint that picture for me and see what information comes out of that. So getting them to change their perspective. Number 6, repeated retrieval. You got to be careful with this one, but it's really effective. This involves asking the interviewee to recall the event multiple times over a period of time, and that's the trick. You don't ask them to repeat it again and again and again during the interview. Go ahead and repeat back, just so I make sure I'm understanding you. Did I miss anything? And then let them fill in any gaps or whatever. But then and go, all right, hey, if you don't mind, I'm going to come back to you later on today after I meet with maintenance technicians and talk with some others. And maybe I'll come out to the shop floor or the factory floor or wherever, to the job site, and ask you some clarifying questions if that's cool. I think this is a great start, and I think you're going to help us figure out how we can stop this from happening again. And then boom, you go back out later and you ask them to repeat this again. It's going to help them consolidate memories and recall information that may have been missed in the previous version of the interview that we were talking about this. And then number 7, timeline, right? Because we have to build a timeline, and we're going to get to that here in a little bit. But one of the techniques that is really going to help us along is building this timeline. It involves asking the interviewee to provide a chronological event timeline. So this can help us identify discrepancies or inconsistencies in the event because, like I said, our memories are constructive, right? We're reconstructing and filling in and making some assumptions, and it's perfectly natural to do this, by the way, about how something may have taken place. So a timeline is going to help us align certain things in certain ways, right? So maybe if we have video, maybe if we have a punch clock and things like data and things like that, like we're able to fit their narrative in between two events that we know we have documentation for, that kind of stuff. So building a timeline is going to be critical. Okay, these techniques are used, all 7 of these techniques. They're used in different combinations depending on the specific needs of the investigation. So by properly using these techniques, you can elicit more accurate and detailed information about the event. All right. Now, obviously, we're all trying to use this to prevent future incidents and ensure workplace safety. Okay, I mentioned a thing about the timeline, and this is a pro tip for you here. I love that phrase. You pro tip, whenever you hear pro tip, it's usually like a shortcut or a hack or a cheat, and it's usually terrible. But this is a safety pro tip. Building backward. Okay, so a powerful twist to applying the timeline technique that I just mentioned is asking an interviewee to remember workplace incident events in reverse order. There are several benefits to this, especially if they're indicating to you they can't recall certain events that took place. One of the benefits, it encourages a different recall method. By asking them to recall the events in reverse order, it helps stimulate a different recall method in their brain. Like typically, people tend to recall events in the order they happened. But asking them to go backwards in reverse order, it encourages them to think more deeply about the incident and may bring to light some details they may have forgotten or missed when remembering them in the chronological order because they're forced to use a different part of their brain. And it's a trick. It works. Okay. But you got to be patient and you've got to kind of, let them go through this whole process. All right. Also, doing this in reverse order and working backward, it helps to identify inaccurate or discrepancies in their account. Recalling events in reverse order can help the interviewers identify these inaccuracies and discrepancies and allows us to ask clarifying questions. If their account changes or becomes unclear when recalling the events in reverse order, it might indicate that they were filling stuff in. And again, it isn't because they were lying or not being truthful, although sometimes that does happen, but it's more about getting back to what we started with at the beginning, and that is this concept that our memories are constructive. We're reconstructing and we're making assumptions. Have you all read these posts online where every other word is missing and you don't notice it? Right? You just start reading it and your brain fills in it, like it knows what word should be next. Our memories are like that too. We can inadvertently or even subconsciously insert information to make it sound or seem logical as we're recalling. And by forcing us to work backward out of order, the order that we're used to, it can almost uncover some of those things. And again, it helps us ask clarifying questions and really get a good handle on what may have taken place. It also reduces the impact of preconceptions and expectations. All right. Recalling events in reverse order can help reduce this impact because the interviewees may have biases or assumptions about the sequence of events, and asking them to recall events in reverse order not only can it help uncover inaccuracies and gaps, but it can help mitigate biases that they may bring to their memory, their recall, and ensure that the account is more accurate. Overall, asking an interviewee to recall workplace incident events in reverse order can help you gain a more accurate and detailed understanding of what happened. It's essential to remember that conducting a cognitive interview for the workplace, it requires proper training and preparation. Interviewers need to understand the cognitive processes involved in memory and memory reconstruction, and the various techniques used in cognitive interviewing to ensure that the interview is effective and accurate, and yet you're not actually hurting the process. So, here are some tips for interview success. First and foremost, it's essential to approach the worker with empathy and understanding. Always assume best intention. The vast majority of workers just want to come to work and do a good job, okay? We're not here to judge. We're also not here to say it's okay that some things happen. We're here to understand. And before we can address anything, fix and prevent anything, we have to first understand it. Recognize that they may be feeling anxious, upset, or even traumatized by the incident. They could still be in pain and going through some medical treatment. Make it clear that you're there to support them and to help them get through this difficult time. Here are a few other tips that can help make the worker a little more comfortable and the interview a little more effective. 1, start by thanking the worker for their time and willingness to talk to you. Yeah, a simple thank you. Let them know that you appreciate their help in understanding what happened and how we might be able to prevent it in the future, and let them know that they are a key part of that. 2, create a safe and confidential space for the interview. Choose a private location where the worker won't be interrupted or even overheard by other workers if possible. Let them know that anything they say will be kept confidential and won't be used against them in any way. I ruffle a lot of feathers when I say that, but sometimes you just have to get that out of the way. Make sure that they fully understand that the only reason why you're talking to them is so that we could figure out how it happened and how to stop it from happening again. It's not to place blame. And then remember what I said earlier about making them feel comfortable. Don't place an object like a desk between you and them, that kind of stuff. Sit with them, make sure they're comfortable. Number 3, be respectful and non-judgmental in your tone and body language. Don't interrupt the worker or even argue with them. Even if you disagree with what they're saying, don't do it. Just resist that urge. Show that you're listening carefully and taking their words seriously. And you could do that by repeating back and asking clarifying questions when appropriate, but they should be doing the vast majority of the talking. Number 4, offer support and resources if the worker needs them. Depending upon the nature of the incident, they may need further medical care, medical counseling, psychological counseling, the EAP program might come into play, or any other types of assistance. Let them know that you're there to help and that you can connect them with any resource they may need. Remember, the goal of the post-incident interview is to learn from what happened and prevent it from happening again. By approaching the worker with empathy and understanding, you can help them feel more comfortable and willing to share their experiences and insights. So to wrap this up, cognitive interviews are an effective tool for investigating workplace incidents. By using cognitive interviews as part of your investigation process, you can improve the accuracy of your investigations, prevent future incidents, comply with legal requirements, engage workers, and continuously improve your workplace safety programs. What do you think? Do you have any tips that you would like to share with the Safety Pro podcast community about how interviews take place, things that you've learned and you've done? Join the conversation over at the Safety Pro podcast community. The link is in the show notes. Go ahead and become a member. It's free to join to become a member. You can read all of the public posts and videos that we post there. But to create your own post and to comment and reply, you do have to be a premium member. Just keep that in mind. No pressure, right? But hey, I would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your perspective on this important topic. So we would obviously love for you to join us over there. And also, show some love to our partners in safety. They really do help make this happen. Mighty Line Floor Tape. Go to mightylinetape.com/podcast. Get a free sample of the floor tape for your own facility. Of course, Drew Hinton from Aero Safety. Go over to aerosafetyus.com. See what they have to offer for you. You won't regret it. And I will talk to you on the next Safety Pro podcast.